Hello everyone, welcome back to Econ with Uday. I am Uday. Today we are diving into one of the most fundamental topic, the nature and scope of economics. Quick question, what comes to your mind when you hear the word economics? Money, stock market, inflation? Well, economics is actually the science of choice. It's about how we make decisions every single day with limited resources. This is lecture 2 of our series. Take your notes and let's begin the series. So what exactly economics? Here you can see the core definition. Economics is a social science that studies how individual, business, governments and societies make choices about allocating scarce resources to satisfy unlimited ones. Let me explain a simple story. Imagine you are a student with 2000 rupees pocket money for a month. You want to buy headphones, you want to eat out, you want to save. But you have only 2000 rupees. So you have to make the choices. That is called economics. The study of how we make choices. Scarcity. Now there are three definitions you must remember. One is Adam Smith definition, which it says about the economic studies how nations create wealth. Another definition you must remember is like Alfred Marshall's definition. It says about the welfare. Economics studies material welfare. And the third definition you must remember is like Lionel Robbins. It says about the scarcity. Economics studies human behavior with scarce means. So here you can see that 700 million people go hungry despite enough food. That is a distribution problem, not a production problem. So this is one of the problem. Next, we are going to study about is economics a science or art? Let's find out. In the next slide, here is an interesting question. Is economics a science or art? Let me break down it. What is science? Why it is science? Here you can see that economics uses scientific method. It uses observation, hypothesis and testings. So it developed laws like law of demand where prices go up, demand go down. But why it is a social science? Because it deals with human behavior, which is unpredictable. You can't put an economy in a test tube. Economy laws are tendencies, not absolute laws like gravity. Example, when coffee prices rise, most people buy less, but some coffee lovers might still buy the same amount. That's human unpredictability. So economics is social science applying scientific methods to human behavior. Next, we are going to study about the understand positive versus normative science. So now this distinction is crucial. Positive versus normative economics. Here you can see the positive economics and normative economics. Here, the positive economics deals with the facts and cause effects and answer what is questions. It can be tested and verified, and it have objectives and value freeze. Example, you can observe here India's unemployment rate is 6.5% and tomatoes price increased by 400% due to erratic rainfall. Here, these are not the opinions; it are the facts. It all derived by the research, and it all derived from the data. So here it has some facts. It depends on the cost effects. So this is called the positive economics. And here you can see the difference between positive economics and normative economics. Here, normative economics deals with the value judgments and opinions. It deals with the people's judgments and opinions of the people. And here you can see the answers, what ought to be questions. And here you can see the answers for what is. And here the answers for the how, what ought to be the questions. And it cannot be tested or verified. It cannot be tested in the labs and it cannot be verified. It is a subjective and opinion based. People opinions change in minutes, in a second. So it is not can be tested in the lab. So it is subjective and opinion based. Here you can see the government should reduce unemployment and government must control vegetable prices. Here you can compare. And it is a fact that Indian unemployment rate is 6.5%. And here you can see the opinion of the people's like the government should reduce the unemployment rate. The government should reduce the poverty. So it is at the judgments, valuable judgments. And here you can see the tomato price increased by 400% due to erratic rainfall. This is one of the facts. Because of the erratic rainfall, the prices of the tomatoes increased by 400%. And here you can see the opinions of the public, like government must control the vegetables. And this is the normative and positive economics. In further classes, we are going to in detail with this for normative and positive economics. And there is a tip for the UGC NET. The distinction is frequently asked in the exams. Next, let's zoom into the microeconomics, which is one of the branch of the economics. Now let's understand the scope of economics, starting with the microeconomics. Here you can see the definition of microeconomics. Microeconomics studies the economic behavior of only individual units, not the whole economy. So it covers the aspects of households, firms, and specific markets, not like the whole economy, not national markets or not national industries. So it only focuses on the individual units. So you have to remember this thing. And key focus area of the microeconomics is like consumer behavior and demand, producer behavior and supply, and price determination in the markets, and market structure and resource allocation. These are the key focus areas of the microeconomics. And in further classes, we are going to deep dive into this topic. And here you can, for the better understanding, you can see the real world example. Here you can see the tomato price fluctuation in the year 2023 due to the crop failure and less supply. The prices of the tomatoes has been increased for 400% than the before. By that, the consumer demand has gone decreased. By that, the farmers has fallen the revenue. So it has affected the farmers, and it is a study of single market, not the whole market, and like whole nation market, tomato market. So you can easily understand this concept. And next we are going to study about the scope of macroeconomics in the next system. And here you can see the scope of macroeconomics. Now let's look at the big picture. Macroeconomics means large. Macroeconomics studies the economy as a whole. Here you can see that macroeconomics study the economy as a whole. It covers the topics of aggregate values, like whole values in the nation. It won't take the individual units. In microeconomics, it talks about the individual units. Here it takes the aggregate values like whole values, nation values, and here it takes the national totals like GDP. Okay, and like in overall economic performance, it is one of the measure we can get to know the performance of economy, whole economy. So it is one of the overall economic performance factor, describing factor, you can say that. And another one is key focus area. It focuses on the national income, and it focuses on the inflation and price levels, unemployment in the economy, economic growth, international trade, physical and monetary policies. And here you can see that microeconomics is the study of whole. You can easily understand this by seeing this picture, and for the better understanding, you can see the real world example which happened in the 2022. We all know that economic crisis in the Sri Lanka. On the time, the runway of the inflation got increased to 70% normally. It is high rate of inflation, and the balance of payments crisis. The balance of payments of the country is in the nation. So that it is one of the crises, and currency devaluation to 80%. It is very biggest problem that the Sri Lanka has faced in the year. So it study the whole economy. It's not studying about the own individual anything like market or anything. It studies the entire economy. Like Sri Lanka is one of the biggest economy, right? It is a big economy. So it studies whole economy. Here you can observe. In the next slide, we are going to cover. Are macroeconomics and microeconomics connected? Absolutely. Let's see. Here the most important concept, micro and macro are two sides of the same coin. They are interconnected. Let me explain. Micro influences macro. Here you can see the total consumption is equals to sum of individual spending, and here total investment is equals to sum of firms investment. Total employment is equals to sum of all firm hiring decisions. Here you can get with an example. When you buy a phone, it is a macro concept. It contributes to GDP, which is a macro concept. Here you can see the macro influences micro. When there is recession, firms reduce production. And when there is high inflation, household purchasing power decreases. And when there is high interest rates, business borrowing cost changes. And here you can see the 2008 financial crisis, which is macro concept affecting the local business and families, which are the micro concepts. Here, think of all this. Your daily choices shape the economy, and the economy shapes your daily choices. In next slide, we are going to study about the economics has expanded into specialized branch. Let me know what they are. Economics has diversified into many specialized branches. Let me share the most important one is managerial economics, which studies the business decision making and strategies used in the businesses. And next one is environmental economics, which studies about the pollution, controlling of pollution, climate change, and sustainability. And next one is labor economics. It studies about the values of the labors, employment, and workforce dynamics. And next one is development economics. It studies about the poverty reduction, inequalities, and emerging economic sources. And next one is public finance. It studies about the taxation, government spending, public debt. And next one is behavioral economics. It studies about the psychology behind irrational choices. And next one is international economics. It studies about the trade, tariffs, exchange rates, and globalization. Here you can see the real world example, one of the real world example. Why do people overspending during sales? That is the behavioral economics. It is psychological thing. The fear of missing out the discounts, the thrill of a discount. And here you can imagine, and let me explain this concept with a story. Imagine you buy a shirt you don't need just because of it is 50% off. That's a not it's a behavior. And next we are going to study about the how do the economics actually study these concepts. Now, how do economists actually work? There are two main methods. One is deductive method and next one is inductive method. First, let us know about the deductive method. Deductive method means top-down approach. Moves from the general to particular. Starts with the theory and applies it. Example for this one is, we know that law of demand. When the price rises, demand falls. So if the price for the coffee rises, demand for the coffee gets reduced. So it is one of the deductive method. And next one is, let us know about the inductive method. It is a bottom-up approach. Moves from the particular to general. We can get to know about this with an example. Observe there are 10,000 consumers. And notice that whenever price go up, the demand goes down. Derives the law of demand. Modern approach. Like it is a combination of both inductive method and deductive method. In this method, economics use both method. Deductive method to develop theories and inductive method to test theories with data. Econometric models for verification. In the next slide, we are going to study about let's meet the economists who shaped this field. In this slide, let me introduce you the most brilliant minds who has shaped economics. Here you can see the key economists and their detailed contributions. And here you can see the economists like Adam Smith, Alfred Marshall, Lionel Robbins, J.M. Keynes, Milton Friedman, Paul Samuelson. And here you can see the key works that they have done by the economists and their definitions and contributions. And here you can see Adam Smith, his book was Wealth of Nations, and he have given the wealth definition. And he says that like economics studies how nation create wealth, introducing invisible and market self-regulations. And here you can see Alfred Marshall. His famous book was Principles of Economics. In that he have derived the welfare definition. In that he says that economics is the study of mankind in the ordinary business of life, focus on material welfare. And here you can see the Lionel Robbins essay on nature, and he given the definition of the scarcity. And he says that economics studies human behavior as a relationship between ends and scarce means which have alternative uses. And here you can see the J.M. Keynes. His book was The General Theory, and he is said as the father of macroeconomics, and he's given the macro revolution, advocated government intervention to fix the depression in the economy. And next question is Milton Friedman, Capitalism and Freedom. And here monetarism. Here you can see the advocate free markets and limited governments. Inflation is always monetary phenomenon. And next person is Milton Friedman after Paul Samuelson, his economics. And he is the modern synthesis, balanced micro and macro, first American economist to win the Nobel Prize in 1970. And here you can see the real world impact. Keynes' ideas during 2008 crisis. Government worldwide using physical stimulus, bailouts and monetary easing. Direct application of Keynes economics which have helped them overcome that. And here we have the summary for the nature and scope of economics. And let's quickly recap the takeaways. First we have nature. Economics is the study of human behavior, making the choice and scarcity. And next we have positive versus normative. Here we study about the facts and opinions. And here we have microeconomics, studies individual units, consumers and firms. And fourth we have macroeconomics, studies the economy as a whole, and it studies about the GDP, inflation and policies. And interdependence. Microeconomics and macroeconomics are interdependent and mutually reinforcing. And scope for the economics is like diversified into specialized fields like behavioral economics, environmental economics, development, labor, and so on. And methodology we use the both deductive method and inductive method. And key economists here is Adam Smith, Marshall, Robbins, Keynes, Friedman, and Samuelson. Here here we can say that economics is the engine that drives the modern world. And I think how does economics affect your daily life? You may get to know. And next we are going to know about what's coming in the next lecture. That's an interesting thing. Let me know about that. Finally, we are at the conclusion, and here you can see that why economics is matters. And here you can see every choice you make is economics, and what to buy, where to invest, how to save, when to work, global impact, climatic change policies, and poverty reduction, international trade. This all matters in the economics. And in the coming lecture, we are going to know about the evolution of economics. In that, we are going to explore the classical economics, neoclassical economics, and Keynesian economics, modern schools, and how economic thought evolved from wealth to welfare and welfare to scarcity. This all we are going to know in the upcoming lecture. I think this is helpful for you. And thank you. Remember, see the world through economic lens. Notice choices, trades-off, and invisible forces. This is Uday from Econ with Uday signing off. See you in the next lecture 3. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this to your friends. And thank you once again.